difference between the States and Berlin, like Europe in general?
Oh man, come on, yeah. It's just
Use the mic, use the mic, use the mic.
yeah, it's
Sorry.
just more of a club culture here in Europe. I think it's, in my opinion, it's more of an infrastructure, bars, restaurants, hotels, promoters, just and people are more into the music, you know, here than they are in the States. You know, in the States, rock, hip hop, pop music, country and western, all that stuff rules. It's king.
Sure, yeah.
But here, you know, you have people who grow up their entire lives listening to Drexia, UR, you know, list goes on, Aphex Twin, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So it's just a total different culture.
You don't feel this in America now.
Huh?
You don't feel this in America.
There are some people, but I don't think there are as many. I haven't seen any evidence that there is the same type of culture, you know, in Europe as there is in the States, you know, because as I mentioned before, all the other musical forms are king. Rock and roll, again, pop music, they rule. So it doesn't leave the same kind of space, you know, for the infrastructure, so to speak.
But
Where you grew up?
Oh, I grew up in Detroit. Oh yeah.
What was it?
Detroit. What do you mean? What was it?
what's
How
so
was
specific?
it?
What's so specific about Detroit that kind of music came from there?
This that you have in your house.
The thing about it is, and I'll go back to the giants of the genres. Okay, so we were under pressure from all these other genres. You know, you had rap coming up, especially gangster rap.
Sure.
And so, you know, there was a kind of a culture developed around kind of anti-commercialism and alternative music. You had all these black guys in a predominantly black city that was heavily, obviously influenced by Motown. You know, Motown was the big bad giant. And so, you know, we were left with listening to alternative forms of music like B-52s, all the stuff coming over from England. You know, we'd even hear some rock and roll. And I know you probably heard the story about Mojo, the electrified Mojo.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
He was a huge conduit for influence in a lot of if you speak with any other techno guys, they'll tell you they spent nights, school nights, listening to Mojo. You know what I'm saying? And he was playing all kind of stuff. And so I think that influenced a lot of us to make what we make. And we were just like, hey, to hell with the commercial. Don't get me wrong, we have our R&B roots. We love our R&B, our jazz. Some of us are gospel, but I think mostly what's in our hearts is techno, and it was shaped by kind of being the outsiders, so to speak. You know what I mean?
It's also about your aesthetic.
The aesthetic.
The
You mean?
The aesthetic about to have this kind of mask.
Oh, with the mask. Oh, that goes back to before me. That was you know,
Detroit.
Scan 7, Underground Resistance, and those guys.
Yeah.
And so I'm just carrying on that tradition. James Stinson, he was like, hey man, you gotta wear a mask. And so I said, okay. So I selected a balaclava, and then we just went from there. So I'm just following in that tradition. You know what I mean?
But for instance, why the techno didn't accept it like the mainstream culture as the hip hop it did, you know?
Oh, why is it not
yeah.
accepted?
Yeah.
You know, because it's mostly instrumental.
Yes.
And then, all right, come on. And then it's kind of revolves around science and technology. And so now all you got to do is look at who we elected and see America's stance in general on science and technology. We still got a long way to go with. It's okay. We use the products of science and technology, but embracing the actual methodology of thinking behind what gives us the science and technology, we haven't embraced it yet. So so you know, it's instrumental music. It doesn't have the same structure as pop music. You know, hook, chorus. You know, and somebody singing about their romance or their dog died or their hard times, and so it's more and it tends to be kind of repetitious. You have to listen to the subtleties in techno music, the filters, the oscillation, the guy taking little stuff that people don't listen to. You know, so I think that's why kind of techno has not taken off mainstream.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
but I think that's going to change. You
Tell me
know,
about this festival, the movement, the Detroit Electronic Music Festival. It's like it was told it's like the best electronic underground festival. Like, is that true? Like, would you recommend?
you need to go if you get a chance to go to Detroit. Get your passport, get your visa, save up some money, and go to Detroit for those 3 days, and you're gonna meet so many nice people, and you're gonna meet a lot of Detroit artists who, unfortunately, they don't have a chance to travel like I do, but they're just as talented, and a lot of them are more talented, and they just need somebody to listen to them and hear their stories. Come to Detroit to the Electronic Music Festival. I don't care who the sponsor is.
Yeah.
Just forget all about that. Come there and see, the heart and soul of Detroit. Detroit techno. You'll get to meet a lot of artists who maybe you only see on record. You only seen their names on records. You'll get to meet them in person. Hey, you might get to go over their house and eat with them. Good people.
So what's about Detroit that actually produced that kind of music? Like, why is it Detroit specifically? Like, what's about the musical scene, the culture? Like, how was it like growing up in Detroit? That produced like Detroit techno.
Well, during the time period that I grew up in, as I mentioned earlier, we had we were at the end of the Motown years, and we were in post-industrial Detroit, and you had the drum machine and the synthesizer becoming more prevalent in music. And so you got these guys who said, hey, you know what? Rather than go out on the weekend, I'm going to take my little money and I'm going to buy a synthesizer. I'm going to buy a drum machine and I'm going to learn it. And so then you had a culture just that developed around, I don't want to call everybody geeks or nerds or nothing like that because that's too strong of a word, but you basically had guys who weren't part of the mainstream, socially to an extent, taking these instruments in an all-black city dominated by R&B and gospel. And so we were the kind of like, outsiders, so to speak.
What are your influences
I'm sorry?
What are your influences from?
Oh, Kraftwerk, Parliament,
Kraftwerk is playing
Thomas
in
Dolby.
Sonor in Spain. Kraftwerk it has been playing in Sonor.
No, I didn't know that. Wow. Okay. I'm sure they sound pretty different than they did in the 80s. But yeah, and of course the king, Juan Atkins.
Yeah,
I mean,
But it's kind of Europe that you are being also.
lots of European influences from Front 242 to we can even go up all the way as recent as the Warp sound when Warp Records started. Bleep techno, guy called Gerald. When people ask me what my influences are, that's not a static thing. Like,
course,
okay, I had this
it
one.
changes,
It's constant. You're influenced if you're trying to remain open-minded and progressive. You're influenced for the rest of your life by. You can be influenced by a 17-year-old teenager. Yeah. So.
I have been in Berlin. I remember this kind of way of to be in a Jurassic Park, like, and just be involved with that.
Yeah.
Listen, I wanted to ask you, like, Afrofuturism, like, did you pursue that everything, that something you did at any part of that? Like Afrofuturism, like Drexler had like huge, like it was like big part of it,
You know what? I guess if I have any Afrofuturism, it's more passive than active. I'm not focusing on Afrofuturism, but I would like to see science in general play a bigger role in not only in the black community, but in America, period. So I guess if I have any Afrofuturistic aspects, it's more passive and it's more of a resultant of my passion for science and technology, as opposed to a direct focus on Afrofuturism. But hey, all respect and power to people who are doing Afrofuturism because it's needed, and we need to break down some of these stereotypes and show the world.
What you said, like, about your influences, or when you say where you are coming coming from, what you play. And
Yeah. Okay. All right. But yeah, yeah. You like you mentioned, Drexia does have an Afro futurism, and you know what? There's a whole new young generation coming up that are embracing those principles as well. So, you know what? I don't want to mention too many yet because they really don't have a lot of releases out there. Still working. And
just some names you can like focus on.
one name I can throw out is a guy named Aloysio. He's on my Facebook page. I'll just give you his first name. So Aloysio, and I think the young lady Frankie from the Disc Woman Collective. She's Afrofuturist, and there's more. Like I said, but I don't want to put nobody out there yet. Because they're still working on releases, and there are lots of other people that I'm probably just not thinking because I'm trying to think too fast right now. But I encourage you to just, anybody listening to do some research. Yeah.
All right, thank you, man.
No problem.
You don't have